morning and welcome to the Good Morning Education Show. Today, the 2nd of September 2021. It's such a rainy day. It's raining so heavily, but it's a rain of blessing. We believe that. Uh, Welcome to the show this morning. We trust that you had a good night's rest and we're glad to know that you are there on the other side of the show with us this morning. This is the Good Morning Education Show where we have topics and analysis around and in the world of education. If it has anything to do with education, yes, you will find us there. And sometimes we go out of education just to bring you a robust edition and a robust discussion and analysis of our topic. Today we have another interesting edition for you, another robust package for you. But before we do that, we will take the headlines from the dailies. Welcome to everyone who's joining us for the first time. We are glad and excited to have you here and to know that you are part of us today. Thank you for joining us. Our first headline this morning says Bakassi returnees. We want our children to return to school. Mr. Etim, in the head of the Bakassi returnees in Cross River, has appealed to the federal and Cross River governments to assist them to return their children to school. NM made the appeal in an interview with newsmen in Calabar on Wednesday. He said that as displaced people, it was hard for them to afford the education of their children, both at the primary and secondary school level. When people, this case of internally displaced people, but in this case, the Bakassi people have been returned to Cross River State and expressing the desire to have their children back in school. I think it's something the government should be listening to them, and that ensuring that they ensuring they have the children in school. They're not asking for too much. Just help with the placement of the children in school. Education is for as many children and as many that can afford it, and those that are interested. It's not a luxury. It's something that we should give to all the children. I hope the federal government and the Cross River State government are listening to this uh, and will make it happen for those children. It's bad enough that they've had all these issues. Our next headline: Nigerian government blames states over rising number of out of school children. Really, it's a blame trading game now. The federal government has blamed states and local governments for the rise in the number of out of school children in the country. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo said most of the problems associated with Nigeria's education sector are the responsibilities of state governments. And I'm not taking that further. I just want to find out, to ask at this point that, so when what really is the function or the duty of the federal government? If we're blaming, yes, the state governments have their roles, but where we have um, federal government schools in different states, is this still the fault of the state government? And really, should we even be trading blames at this point and saying, oh, it's one person's fault, it's somebody else's responsibility? What we should be doing is joining forces together, joining hands together, federal, state, local governments, to say, look, our children deserve is what we'll give to them. FCT UBEB Lagos Suburb meet to boost education. For 4 days, the acting chairman of the FCT Universal Basic Education Board, Dr. Sule Al Hassan, recently led other top functionaries of the board on a knowledge, experience sharing, and peer review visit to Lagos State Universal Basic Education Board. It was also designed for the boards to compare notes and exchange ideas to achieve greater outcomes in providing national basic education services. One thing that we cannot deny is that the Lagos State government is setting the pace and is doing really well in the area of education. And it's heartwarming to see that the FCT, UBEC or UBEB has identified that, and it's not a if it's a competition, it's a healthy one, but it's not. They're not making a move to discredit or say, oh, no, what exactly are they doing? But to join forces, understudy each other, look at where can we be of help to each other. What do we need to take from you? What have you been doing? How have you done it so well? This is commendable. Coming from these two collaborations and corporations, and I'm seriously of things like this and less of trade blaming of trading blames in the news. Igbinedion University partners Newcastle Aerodrome to train pilots, others in aviation industry. Igbinedion University, Okada, has signed a memorandum of agreement with Ireland based, sorry, Igbinedion University, Okada, has signed a memorandum of agreement with Ireland-based Newcastle Aerodrome for the training of private and commercial pilots alongside other workers in the aviation value chain in Nigeria. The Oscar Ibro Information and Communication Technology Center, donated by business mogul Olorogun Oscar Ibro to the institution, is among the world-class facilities identified for the training. Without adding or taking from this, I'll just say excellent move. We want to see many more collaborations. It's looking like collaborations will be our way forward, will be our is our solution. Yesterday, well, we looked at our core problems they can't really say what the curriculum they run is, and this is something that they really, really need. This is something they need to get together and get uh, they need to get put in place. Good morning, Alero, and welcome to the show this morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. It's raining on the side. I'm not sure it is at your end, but it really is a rainy morning for us on the side.
It's
But
just a cold morning over here, so
we're glad to have you with us this morning. We are discussing what makes a school great, or so you think you've got a great school, before we make that bold, is it assertion, or just say, oh, yeah, we believe our school is great. What, in your opinion, I've touched well, one thing essentially. I was going on to the second thing, and then you came in. So I would just like to pause here and ask, what, in your opinion, really makes a school great?
all right. So it's good that you're saying that. So I've got younger siblings, and they're just going through to college, and we were looking at what kind of schools they should go to and everything else, and they were looking at whether they should go to grammar school or they should go to a college or whatever, that kind of thing, and there are always different factors. So a lot of people kind of look at the pass grades. Oh, is the are the children going to receive A's to C's? That what's the pass grade for most students, etc. But for us, it was more about what's the experience that individual's going to get. So you could take your child to a school where everybody gets A's, B's, and distinctions, but they don't have the experience. And then you could go to an open free learning experience, and then you could take a child to a college or a school where they may not get super high grades, but they have a better learning experience. So I mean, it does depend on what each individual's looking for, in that case. Of course, you want your child to pass and to make the best grades possible, but probably more importantly, to some extent, it's about that experience. What do they gain within that school? Who are the teachers? What are the kind of children that they're going to be associated with? How are they going to develop themselves? And I think we have, more often than not, we get stuck on this thing where we have to go to great schools in order to meet the right people, in order to meet, get grades to do the right job. But you can find that if a child is able to express themselves, within a good enough environment, they will excel and hit the top grades. And after school, after college, after university, go on to do great things. So that's just my opinion.
Thank you. So yes, I know one of the things that parents consider before putting their children in school is what you mentioned. Who are they going to school with? Parents want to know, am I giving my child the best possible opportunity to meet people that will be very relevant to their lives in the future and will give them a better head start in school, well, in life, and make it easier for them to, well, launch out into whatever it is they want to do. Okay, talking about, I was talking about the outlook of the school and how this is the first interaction that anyone has with the school. When we look at that outlook, how important is the outlook to what informs the greatness of a school?
When you say outlook, do you mean kind of essentially it's just first impressions, right?
Yes, so what people see first, there's the uniforms,
Oh yeah,
the buildings, the facilities, the brand,
absolutely.
what's associated with the brand. Yes.
Absolutely. So I remember when I went to school, I went to a school well, it was in South London and everything else. But I remember in our assemblies it was constantly pushed you are a representative of the school. Out once you're in uniform, if you fight out in your uniform, you basically get expelled. If your uniform is not on point when you're on the roads, you're in trouble. That kind of thing. And I guess to an extent we kind of didn't understand it, but we just followed the rules. But you would find that people would kind of stop you. Oh, you go to St. Saviour's, blah 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 blah, and they would, you were the representatives. They would look at you in your school uniform as students that came from a really good school. And a few yards down, there was another school next to us, Chaucer, and they were a mess, actually. The students weren't. Their uniforms were like tardy. They were like they had blazers that were always hanging off. They kind of always fought on the streets. It was just a mess. So when you compare the two, of course, people would see St. Saviour's as the better school, purely based on the way the students carry themselves in public. So yeah, it does take, it is a lot, and it does, impact a lot on people's opinion. Impressions, first impressions make a huge difference. You wouldn't consider a school if you saw 50-60% of their students with, dirty shirts, or they were walking around in like, off-colored white socks. You wouldn't, because it just shows that maybe people aren't that really interested in the appearance of the students. So yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah.
Great, great. Thank you for that. And then before we go on to the next point, uh, what makes a school great? Welcome to the show this morning, Mr. Rotimi Itayo.
Hello, good morning. Hello, Alero. How are you?
Good morning.
That's really chill. That's really chill this morning. Is this rain effect?
You're on your home, okay? You're on your own.
All right, then. So we're going on to the output of the school. Well, on the in the bigger picture, the output really is, in my opinion, what makes the school great. But what do you think about the output of a school when schools consider the type of teachers to hire, the curriculum and how it is taught, the teaching experience or the learning experience, okay, for both the teaching experience and the learning experience for the students, the training culture, apart from the teachers, even other staff, qualification of other staff in the school. How important are all of these things brought together in making the school great? I'll start with you, Alero.
I think they're all so important. You know, gosh, I sound a bit snobby, but um, I would want to take my child to a school where, for instance, the people serving food, for instance, are not educated to enough, if that makes sense. It sounds so bad, but every person that that child interacts with is going to impact in their life. They're going to have an impact. Whether it's a person that serves snacks, whether it's the person that's in the playground attendant, the year one teachers, who the head, right through to the headmistress or headmaster, they are all going to make an impact in that child's life. So I think it is important that whoever is in the school as a teacher, or as teaching or serving the students, has to be of a certain standard. What that standard is, it depended on the school. That's why you have so many different schools for different kinds of people. But for me, everything has to be screened. It has to be, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be considered. That's the best way to put it, I think. And then at least I'm able to make an informed choice, as opposed to just dropping my child off and hoping and praying for the best. I'd want you to make an informed choice that, okay, I know for a fact that all teachers are qualified to X amount, or they're specialists in the subject area. I remember when we used to have like supply teachers, stand-in teachers for teachers who weren't around, and you'd get like, I don't know, an art teacher or somebody who was like a specialist in art trying to teach maths. Completely not possible. So, and that teacher who, the standing teacher may be there for a week. Now that's a full week where we were not doing the math curriculum to the standard we should have been doing, because the art teacher was like, okay, just turn to page 4. And of course, it was a full week of not learning. So you want to make sure that anybody who comes into that school and is interacting with the student is of a certain standard. That's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. I'll take this to Mr. Itayo. many times we put more emphasis is placed on those who have more direct contact with the students when thinking about their qualification, thinking about their outlook, the way there are certain schools where it's a crime for you not to smell good, for you not to smell nice. It's a crime as a teacher, as an educator. But then you see there are other people who have contact with these children. You have admin staff, you have the nursing or the medical staff, you have some of the maybe even cleaning staff that come in touch in contact with the kids. How much of emphasis or how much of attention should be paid to these people who seemingly are not that important in the lives of the kids? In pulling all of this together to make a great school, how much of importance should be placed on these people and on these other factors that just maybe just overlook and think, oh, what's the purpose of maybe doing a background check or bothering about the way the person that changes the refill bottle on in the we don't really care about. All he does is come in, change the bottle, maybe does some photocopies and all of that. But you find in some cases that these people really still do have interaction with the children. So how much of this should importance be placed on in having an all-round great school? Are you
Is that
there?
question for me?
Yes, it is.
Hello, is the question for me? Okay. So I think that the way these things work is that we need to recognize that quality control is almost like your best tool to achieve total quality across the school. The average school must be divided into levels. So for us not to focus just on the teaching staff and then at the detriment of the other angle of our service, we will now miss out on something. So each service level must have an interpretation of what we mean by quality. So what does it mean to be a quality staff? Or what does it mean to have a quality workforce? It means that at every service level, we have some measure of quality benchmark. So the general behavior of the entire workforce, if you say, for example, we have a professional workforce, professional or professionalism for a teacher would not necessarily be professionalism for a technician or for a school bus driver, but there is a common denominator. So we must be able to communicate that, and then they align with the standards of the school, so that if I interact with any member of staff, regardless of the service level they represent, we can equally say that these guys are worthy ambassadors of the school. And that cannot be achieved by instruction only. Most of the time, because of different level of education and exposure, because also of longevity, where sometimes some things need to be reinforced for remembrance, and some people are new, we need to learn to move away from instruction to immersion. And that's why you see sometimes some organizations spend some time to create orientation programs for entry people. They create reorientation programs for existing staff. Sometimes they add up what you call team bonding activities just to ensure that people are at a particular level in sync with the direction of the school. So when we recognize all these things as things to be done, you find out that quality now goes away from something people are just trying to achieve. Quality now becomes a climate and atmosphere for the school. So it's easy for you to see that someone is not measuring up. And when you see the one that is not measuring up, you are able to identify whether it's an issue of behavioral challenge or it's an issue of knowledge gap. If it's behavioral challenge, then you can know the right thing to do to deal with that. If it's knowledge gap, then you know that you need to bring about training. And that's the way to advance continuity for quality, so that you can have a school that will truly be great. Not just yesterday's greatness, but everyday greatness. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And while you were speaking, Ifyok joined us all the way from the United Arab Emirates. Good morning. Good morning, Ifyok. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So this morning we're posing a challenge. So you think you've got a great score? What makes you think you've got a great score? I would ask you, and I'm posing this to you, Ifyok, as taking it that you're a school owner and your school, you're telling me you have a great school. I'm putting this to you. How would you defend your school if I ask you what makes your school great?
Fee. uh, why first of all, why would you like I'm just coming in, allow me land softly, huh?
You have landed very softly.
Oh my goodness. Okay. That's a tough one because I think me being able to define what a great school is depends on what my priorities are, okay, and what my goals are, what I want to achieve, because I can only that's a yardstick that I'll use to measure my school, right? What my goals are and what it is I want to achieve and what um effect I want to I want the school to have on the people. So but one thing I'll say is that relationships, okay, so a school that uh has relationships, that prioritizes relationships, okay, I think that's one thing. Relationships on all levels, so whether it's student to teacher relationship, whether it's parent relationships, whether it's parent to teacher relationships, whether it's management to staff relationships. So at each of those levels, okay, prioritizing relationships and making sure that those relationships are actually valuable, okay, and that they are not just being a nuisance to to each other, but adding value to lives, okay, on every level of relationship. I think that's one thing that I would be looking out at doing, strengthening the relationships that uh, abound within the school system. And another thing I'll be looking at doing is focusing on soft skills. Um, I'll use the word 21. I'll use the word 21st century skills. Okay, in such a way that when children and parents, and we're still going from the angle of relationships now, okay, so when students pass through the school, there's a usage would an adage would normally say that the school will pass through them. And what does it mean for the school to pass through them? It means that they are able to um, step out of the school system and live responsible lives, okay, live lives in such a way that they're not a nuisance to their community, but rather they're adding value. And that's the same thing I said, all about strengthening the relationships that we have in the school system. So rather than, instead of sitting down and just focusing on the academics and okay, one is a great scholar but cannot relate to the next person sitting by his or her side. Honestly, I would say I have failed as a school if I cannot produce children who can make who can be valuable to themselves first. You know what I mean? And then add value to the world around them. And I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you. That was a great defense for your school.
Well, okay. Oh, yeah.
We know what makes your school great, and well, putting that out, I'm sure there would be parents and other people who see your school will agree that it is a great school, especially talking about soft skills. These are things that we say later in future. These are the things they don't teach you in school. So if the school is teaching us those things, then yeah, it really is a
And
great school.
if you know, since we're talking about school, I'm going to bring it into the virtual world, okay? Because now this is where school is right now for a lot of people. And I run a virtual school. It's so it's not a physical school. So working on making that school a great school, I tell you, it's not a day's job, because you have to go all out. You have to like do more than the extra that you would normally do in a physical school. Keep and sustain those relationships and make sure that you are in touch with your community, with your people, with your parents, with the children, because you need to be able to touch them. Now you cannot reach out to them physically. Okay, so I'm actually speaking to a lot of people who are listening and are running the virtual space in school. So you need to be able to go the extra mile. That one-on-one interaction with each of your parents is important. With each of the children, you need to be able to get to them and have them be able to open up to you. That's not a day's job. So yes, being able to relate well on different levels is honestly key to having a great school.
Great. So we have looked at the outlook, we have looked at the output, and then now we would look at the outcomes of a school before we can say it's great. Before we go on to what are the things that a school should do or not do if it wants to retain its greatness. So when we look at the outcomes of a school, how much of the outcomes really how much of the outcomes determine or speak about the greatness of a school? Alero. Hello, is Alero there?
I am. I missed the question. Sorry.
Okay, how much of the outcomes of a school, the things we see from them, you talked a lot about student behavior, about the way they look and appear in their uniforms, and what people attribute to them when you think about them. So how much of this really speaks about the greatness of a school?
I mean, I think it speaks quite a significant amount, really, because it's not. How can I put it? Your appearance kind of reflects your like what's going on in your mind and everything else. So if you are being taught the right way, if you're being groomed, if you like, in the right ways, your appearance will reflect that. So there's no way that you're going to go to a private school and be in a dirty uniform. It's just if there is that happening, then there is a problem. That's just pretty much standard all throughout, because you as the individual will take on and mirror the behaviors of others. So those around you, you cannot be the only one in haphazard. If everybody else around you is looking well groomed, human nature, you will take on the behaviors of those around you. So that, I mean, it's a full threading, if that makes sense. Every step is interconnected, from the education, from those you saw, all the way through to the way you yourself represent yourself outside. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it does. And I would ask Rita the same question. How does the outcome of a school affect its greatness? Or does it even affect its greatness in any way?
Finn,
Yes, please.
were you talking to me? Sorry, I got a bit distracted.
Yes. I was asking if the outcomes of a school affects the greatness in any way.
The outcome of a school. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
I think the real test of greatness is found in outcomes. There are many times that we do things in schools, and all the things that we do falls on the quadrant of good things. So there are some things that they are not necessarily essential, and even when they're essential, they do not necessarily change certain things. For example, if your school has a rose planted in the lawn, doesn't necessarily mean anything as such. Maybe, for example, you have a mango tree by the gate of the front entrance. It doesn't necessarily translate to greatness. It's just a good thing that, oh, your school has a good landscape. It's a good thing. Oh, your school has maybe bright colors on one of the walls. Yes, your school has a good inscription of its insignia. Those are good things. They are not necessarily outcomes. Outcomes is when we begin to measure academic excellence. Outcome is when I am able to say that, oh, this child that attends is able to try on things, can be independent, depending on their age level, as it were. Those are the things that mean outcome, because output is just a summary of activities. So we sing the national anthem. That's an output. It's not an outcome. So we spend some time to have Christmas party. That's an output. It's not an outcome. So we have inter-house sports. To a large extent, inter-house sport is not an outcome, it's an output. These are summation of calendar to begin to see the quality of what the school has made the child become, is what we see in the quality of what the school has made its workforce to become, is the interaction, the visible interaction and interface with the school as an education community, or as stakeholders, or even as parents, the relationship management. Those are outcomes. And so sometimes I think one of the things that school leaders, school practitioners, education experts should understand is that let's not confuse outputs for outcome. A lot of times we throw money at getting output at the expense of outcomes. And that's why you find out that sometimes when schools run trainings or look for trainings, when schools attend conferences, their choice of conferences, when schools organize social events, you begin to look at it and say, wait, are we all just for the optics, or we are for the results? Are we just trying to look good, or we want to make good? Because these things are things that as we step into a new session and a new term, people must be able to sit down and understand that. I've listened to committees, I've listened to units, I've trained people, I've listened in retreats of schools, and it's like everybody's racing for output. And when you ask them, what's the outcome of it from this?
Okay, I'm not sure if he's done yet. There seems to be some glitches with the
I'm
network.
done. I'm done. I'm done.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We should place less emphasis on the outputs and actually look more at the outcome, which is what really is on the grand scheme of things determines the greatness. So as we close, I'm going to split this into two. What should great schools stop doing that can diminish their, or that is the David to the Goliath of their greatness? And what should they start doing that um would augment their greatness? And so I'm thinking now, who do I give what? Um, you feel like I'll give you the David. What should they stop doing? What should they stop doing that could be that could be a threat to the greatness of the school? Your mic is muted.
All right, sorry about that. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to say schools should just stop where they are right now. Do an assessment of where they are, and then go back to the drawing board. Okay, and so when they go back to the drawing board, they'll be able to identify areas where they feel they're lacking or they're found wanting. And one of those areas I would like to highlight is the area of management of staff management, because I find that a lot of times schools may focus on what they can get. So as such, they do not put a lot of emphasis on teachers knowing their content, on staff management or staff welfare. And because of that, a lot of teachers are always on, looking out for greener pastures. There's nothing wrong with looking out for greener pastures, but if you treat your staff well, they will feel, they'll feel at home, with whatever it is you're providing for them, and you will find that they go beyond themselves. We have that thing in us. It's just the nature of a teacher to always want to go beyond. So if your teacher feels comfortable where he or she is, that way you will find that they're thinking towards developing their school, developing their practice, which invariably will show in how your school develops. Okay, so that's one thing I would say. Stop undermining the place of your staff. When I say staff, generally not just teachers, even if it's the bursar or the gate man or whoever it is, as long as that person is part of that school community, treat him or her as family, and then you'll be on the path to increasing your chances of greatness. Let me put it that way. Yeah, I think that's just one thing I'll say.
Okay, and then Alero, what should great schools add to their menu? Already they're great, but what should they add to their menu that would keep them on that skill to continually be greater? Okay, did you get the question?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, what should they keep on their menu that would help them sustain their great?
Okay, so in terms of adding to the menu, sometimes you don't want, if you're already a great school, you don't want to add to the menu to start confusing matters. You don't want to. Yes, I did. I think we've got a bit of a lag.
Okay, yes, please go on.
Okay, so hopefully the lag is gone. I think that if you're already a great school, you may not need to add that much more to your menu. You don't want to get a situation where you have too many options and everything gets confused, or you have so many options it becomes activity. So I think if you're already a great school, the important thing is just to keep maintaining that level, and then just keep an eye on new technology. You've got a great lag. Yeah, we've just got to just keep an eye on new technologies, and just keep improving that aspect. You don't want to add too much more. You just want to enhance what you have.
Right, thank you. So if you already have a winning formula, keep it going. Keep it. Just keep it. And as we round off, I would ask, because the only man in the building has decided to show us his face right now. So I would ask one thing for and one thing not to do for the greatness of
I'm
the
waiting
school.
for you guys to catch up. I think you heard it. Did everybody hear that?
Is it only my face you're seeing? You're not seeing my chest. You're not seeing my.
Ooh.
When we get to that point, when we get to that point in the show, we'll ask for the flexing.
I drip in glory, you know.
Not again.
So
Your greatness.
your question is
One thing that schools should stop doing that can affect their greatness, and one thing they should keep doing to sustain the greatness.
I think that schools should keep dreaming because not everybody's on the same level. So your dreams are valid. Keep dreaming, keep striving. And then unhealthy comparison is what I think schools should stop. There's a lot of copy and paste behavior, and that is what has led to where we are today. Everybody trying to look alike at the expense of their true growth. So I don't want a situation where Ifyok is trying to look like Alero School. Alero School is trying to look like Rotimi School. Yes, there are people that will inspire you based on their improvement and achievement, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's what they've done that you have to do. It's just to spur you to also chart your own form of greatness where you can leverage, but then it doesn't stop you from being innovative. That's why it's called education. So yes, those are things I like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we have come to the end of the show this morning. I know how 1 hour always seems very, very, very short, but here we are today at the end of the show. Thank you very much for being here, Alero. Thank you, Ifyok. Thank you, Rotimi Tayo. And thank you, Pinfolo Falodun, for being here. And to every one of our tribe members out there who has joined us this morning, thank you for being part of our show. Ifyok, where's your glasses? I hope you're not feeling terrorized by these other 3 people.
He's wearing contact. Ifyok is wearing contact.
Honestly, what did she say? What did she say? I didn't get you, Mr. Itai. I'm sorry. Yeah, honestly, as soon as he put those glasses on, I'm like, where are mine?
Yeah. Thank you all for making the show a wonderful one this morning and for being here and being part of the show.
Yeah, but Finn, you did not tell us where Alero is streaming from. You only said Ifyok is streaming from UAE. So let's rep Alero properly, okay?
Okay, so please do the honors.
I'm streaming from the UK.
The UK. You know,
the UK.
Wow. Okay. Curiosity satisfied. So we can end the show. We can end the show now and wish our Taming Tribe members out there a great morning. On the count of 2, let's go, Tim. 1, 2, go.
It's always
a great morning on the Good Morning Education Show.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye.